Alright, Lesson 10, Quality Surveillance. Introduction. The effect of the petroleum management program must be familiar with the quality surveillance, particularly the laboratory type of equipment, significant type of the contamination, deterioration, recombination, dispersion, and required procedure. Quality surveillance program definition. All measures for the take and ensure the petroleum product they have to be accepted with the government being with the required quality instead of the required quality with the developed review with the quality surveillance include the watching over the carrier of the product with the dual during all storage, the handling operation, following of the handling procedure, the method, design of the product, quality, examining, testing the product, and storage and on-chaining with the capacity. Terms. You must hear for the quality assurance, the time and time for the term of the quality surveillance, however, the difference for the term of the quality assurance with the government program, the term of the manufacturer fulfilled with the contractor obligation for the correct quantity of the quality of the product, quality in question, quality assurance with the complete with the product accepted with the government, become with the government owned. QS begins with the petroleum product with the accepted with the government quality surveillance applied with the product with the military pipeline tank with the applied with the government owned with the commercial pipeline leakage tank. These tankage responsibility each every agent that supplies system with the transport store with the distributed issue with the petroleum product with the responsibility for the quality surveillance. Every individual will physically handle the petroleum product with the share of the responsibility. Conduct of the project approach on the quality assurance with the representative of the DLA responsible for providing test for the result on the batch product with the manufacturer of the military for they have the physical possession of the petroleum product with the government-owned facility with the responsibility. Setting up the machine, maintaining quality surveillance program, maintaining the military handbook 200 AR 7031 with the representative of the Army Petroleum Center, new with the Cumberland, in the Army, no deep with the Defense Depot, Trade for the San Francisco, California, monitoring quality surveillance program. O'Connor's under provision of the military handbook 200 with the Joint Petroleum Office with the air with the coordinate with the quality surveillance program with the command air with the term of the military with each of the command with the responsible setting of the maintaining quality surveillance program as well as maintaining operating lab that required for the performance of the test. Insurance of the quality surveillance with each of the essential characteristics of the set with the published and specification of the character of the listed quantity measure for the physical chemical property for the product which with the taking them together ensure with the make it appropriate with the maintain with the you with the help with the each throughout the properties demand depend on the composition product and each chain of the product may result with such of the mark chain that the product becomes unsuitable for the intended use of the issue with the unsuitable product the combat they may be produce critical damage result of such products could cause the loss of personnel with the equipment it might need deciding the factor for the such failure of the mission. Classification quality surveillance petroleum products are classified into one of the three categories. OG the product means it's all special requirements. SFE with one or more tests of the product that fails specification requirements but are within deterioration usable limits, and SFEU with one or more tests of the product fail to meet the deterioration usable limits. Storage operation minimum perceived that required with the proper quality for surveillance of the storage operation that is followed if possible. Ensure the tank for the use with one type of the product clean. Store with the tanks with the product with the chain to keep the products. Record all the tanks listing with the test result with the record of the set of the tanks schedule. Schedule the segregate with the product with the grades for the separate system with the possible to identify the line with the facility to protect with the product that you have the blank flange bleeder valve to remove the section of the pipe with the segregation and single the valve with not sufficient consolidated on-spot specification style with this will keep the store with the fill with the reduce the breathe with the evaporation allow with the keep the other tank with the empty with the receive with the new product when receive the product with the partially filled with the tank with ensure with the same with the product with the type of the same with the quality better not receive the product with the uncertain the quality with the partially filled tank ensure the product is well allowed to sell with the least with the minimum time allowed with the IAW military handbook 200 move the water daily from the warning tank with the weekly from the other tank with the do not maintain with the water bottoms with the unless specified otherwise to do so transfer the contents including ASAP with the discover the leaks sample the test of dormant start with the prescribe with the surveillance table of the military handbook 200 table 2 for the basics every 6 months for the bulk determining cycle every 12 months for the package product with the table of 1 when the operating cycle falls into one of the prescribed categories loading product ensure the transfer and tank of the with the one product tank only. Tanker may be land vehicle, the barge, or ship that inspect tanks, cleanliness vehicle, the shaping and safety proper mechanical operation, verify all the signature card verified amount loaded in the tank place to seal the tank cover the valve manifold used the civilian contractors. Unloading procedure. Verify all paperwork. Ensure the seal that have been tampered with. They immediately report any of the discrepancy with the IAW military handbook 200 table 3 with the gauge tank for the before and after. Receive fill out with the necessary forms. Pipeline operation. Pipe quality assurance. The representative of the exercise surveillance over the pipelines. Their duties include the handling capacity for the cycling pump, the rate, the progressive test for the test point, generating, handling, evaluating, interface fixtures, the receiving the bright pads for the tank with the verifying the product with the quality, monitoring the level of the additive, the making periodic checks, and the character for the petroleum product, main specialized for the petroleum product with the developed the military for the ensure the adequate performance complex likely highly specialized military equipment that hence each of the product with the design with the form and related have the certain character with each of the characteristics of the physical the substance act with the issue itself the chemical the how the substance react with the other show with the example of the physical character for the density for the example of the chemical product the corrosive if the chemical physical character that can be further broken down within the 5 categories the main areas of interest for the petroleum products or test viscosity volatility measure the tendency for the liquid chain of the vapor state so the water chain the seam the viscosity of the measure for the resistance of the liquid semi-liquid to movement higher viscosity viscosity, more resistant to the movement. For example, the non-molasses moves slowly but has a higher velocity in the water quickly than has low viscosity. Stability is a measure for the product intended to retain the physical, chemical, the property, the character, to help determine the effect of the storage of the product, the performance, the high temperature, corrosiveness, the measure for the product, for the tendency to slowly wear away of the object with the contact with the chemical action. All right, quality control, cleanliness for the categories of the not really relay much character of the product with the important gear out of the test of the group test for the early detection, contamination, the deterioration product with the before character of the chain, but they also made for the group of the good patrol and handling technique for the lack of them. Mishandling weather contamination of the petroleum product can cause the physical and or chemical chain with the chemical chain with the character of the product can cause the unstable ability with the unintended use. To ensure product stability all time with the military mind of the product with the manufacturer for the consumption to be done with the take of the sample the heavy and analyze with the petroleum laboratory will perform the test to determine the critical priorities, characteristics of the product with the sum of the possibility of flashpoint vapor pressure of the sediment, water, viscosity, distillation. Alright, 7. Determining sampling and testing requirement. The minimum sampling and testing frequency of the product depends on the type of the product, the location, the type of the store. The last test of the sampling determines stock with the military handbook 200 with the table 2 with the move at the top of the table 3 with the petroleum product. The mandatory sampling and testing fall into 5 categories. 4. Accepting the video of the manufacturer when the contamination of deterioration is suspected after the movement of the products by bulk of the before the issue of the individual equipment. Piece of the equipment as or periodic check with the filter affecting each of the categories are covered with the specified testing. And series test type A test the test series done with all the petroleum product prior with the manufacturer with the product shipping with the military immediately before the military takes the possession of the product with all tests listed in the specification of the product performed. Type B1 test series the test series done with the check with the characteristics most likely to have been affected bulk petroleum products. Type B2 test series the series done with the character of the product that have deteriorated due to age. Type B3 test is series done with the product is suspected of being contaminated. Type C test is done with the final check with the before issue from the consumption of the tank vehicle after the initial verification product with the receipt of the product with any other unit, the receipt of the product with the after shipping of the manufacturer. Type C with the shipment done with the verified product with the type of the receipt operation. Type A series required with the final acceptance of the product is given the monthly filter with the effectiveness of the Type C series most of the mill pour test. Turntable 4 with the 4A and the 4 through 4G is the military handbook 200. As you found the type of series that performed the military handbook table 3 with the specific test to be done with the table 4AG with the specific test done each of the series depending on the type of the product being tested. Each of the tests determine the critical property of the product. However, the test of distillation may determine the more than one critical property. For example, the test require the diesel fuel series are given in table 10.1. Alright, significant tab with the limited the discussion of specific tab with the one with the most likely with the June base of the additional will group with the tab with the character with the measure of the volatility tab with the flashing power points are performing the light distillated fuel with the diesel JPA with lubricating oil with the hydraulic fluids with the gear oil with the brake with the fluids of the aviation motor gasoline JP4 with the other NAF with all based from the fuel that do not flash with the fire points tested before them NAF ball based then flash point of 50 negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The flashpoint with the receiver, the temperature which of the product will give it off with the sufficient flammable with the vapor of the ignite with the application of the outside of the heat, the store with the fire point with the temperature with the product vapor to continue to burn with the application for the outside with the heat store with the fire point. Any of the range of the range of the 10 to 70 degrees Celsius higher than its flashpoint. The test is performed and ensure the product with the evidence contained with a low flashpoint probably ensure the new product that had been refined properly. The test ensure the product flashing the fire points that move above the expected operating temperature. The flashpoint requirement is usually 50% 50 degrees Celsius with the expected operating temperature. The off specification is to dispose of the blend with a suitable quantity of the on specification product with either the off specification product with could cover the engine, seal the blow out and set fire start with the fire 3 principle of method of determining flash and fire point with the clip and an open cup to determine the flash and fire points over the Depensky Martin's closed up determine the flash point with the distillated fuel oil with the diesel burn oil with the deck closed up method determine the flash point with the jet turbines of the JP8. Or distillation. The test is performed with the light distillation with the jet turbine fuel with the diesel fuel with the gasoline with the test of the evaluate the vaporization character with the fuel with the aid of the prediction of the performance of the characteristics. Gasoline must be sufficiently volatile to perform. Remember that easy start with the not excessively volatile except for the evaporation law with the curve with the premature vaporization carbureted fuel line tank with in place with the incompatibility between the fuel with the engine with the due the vaporization character with the leave the equipment loft and damage. Vapor pressure. All liquid is the time of the vapor result over the positive pressure for the extent of the exerted by the liquid body. The pressure from the liquid is suitable to contain under the control condition for the accurate measure of the vapor pressure that can be determined. The vapor pressure, an important factor for the all gasoline safety performance point of the view of the internal combustion engine for the fuel mass vapor out of the cylinder through the carburetor into the manifold. The vapor pressure for the two have the fuel vapor out of the fuel point. Fuel pump feeds line with the cause of the vapor, the black with the vapor pressure for the two low. The fuel vapor readily enough the resulting unevenness of the operation hard starting the aircraft. The vapor pressure be high enough to go good performance. The low the altitude low pressure with the prevent vapor lock with a higher altitude. The read vapor pressure test method is normally use the vapor pressure. Viscosity test. Cloud or pour point of the test is performed at the higher the distillated fuel oil of the cloud point with the product with the temperature of the which of the paraffin wax content normally held in the solution begin to solidify separate into the tiny crystal with the causing the product to appear hazy. Pour point with the lowest temperature for the which can be poured product that have the high cloud point with the formal wax crystal easy for the cloud point of the test. So usually estimate the temperature with the stream fill for the engine the would be clogged with the pipeline might become clogged if the product's flowing within the high cloud point of the pour point. Pour points in the greatest value to become the high wire significantly of the cloud point. The pour point is significantly lubricating over the use of the machine with exposed with the low temperature high distillated slowly low viscosity until they cannot move. For example, the aircraft flown in high altitude with the temperature are very low. You must use the lubricants and have low pour points. Pour points are significantly diesel fuel that's applying low temperature with the fuel is fluid enough for the pump. The pour points are going to be lowered, but they increase the volatile fuel with the expense for the lowering power point BTUs. Lower the flash point with the fuel, therefore the pour point should not be specified lower than necessary for the service for the fuel is used. Freezing point. The important character for the light distillate of the aviation gas for the jet fuel for the distillate suddenly lowers the viscosity 1 or 2 degrees of the product free for the free point. The product with a very low, preventing solidification of the component hydrocarbons with it, which increase the fuel flow. With the fuel filter line with the freeze point determined by the cooling instrument with the sampling with the cooling bath until the first slushy slurry or crystal appears. Alright, viscosimeter test. Viscosimeter measures the flow of the product with the precise temperature usable exerted operating temperature. There are 3 types of viscosimeter: kinematic viscosity, stable, the universal viscosity, stable, the foral viscosity. Has the viscosimeter calibrated glass instrument with the 1 or 2, 3 bulb with the connected with the small tube with the test with the conductor with the inserting port for the product with the bulb with the viscosimeter. The product with the allowed with the flow with the 2 point with the mark on the tube with the time measure of the product with the complete flow is due with the calculation. The calculation result with the number of the rate with the viscosity product with each of the product. Petroleum product has a precise range of viscosity stability with the test with the jet thermal oxidation stability test with the test is running the jet turbine fuels. This is JP8 and the thermal stability of the fuel is resistant to chemical which physical change upon exposure. With the high temperature of the show of the fuel with the performance during the jet aircraft operation, you with the access with the stability of the fuel with the given the temperature unstable the fuel deposit decomposition product with the fuel system component with the jet aircraft which could result in the engine failure. Existent gum. The test the run with the gasoline jet turbine fuel with the gum content with the fuel with the cover with the deposit with the resistance of the gum and the material with the induction and the system and intake with the valve with the cause of the malfunction with the gum and the infirm with the fuel with the oxidizing product. So if the temperature fluctuation with the cause of the storage tank with which of the air breathe with this cover with the fuel the oxide with the form gum usually high normal looking dry appearing with the gums show the deterioration highly oily wet air appearance and the gum content show the contamination of heavier product. Your corrosion test. The petroleum product is more likely to contact the metal with the sympathy essential for the metal now but the subject with the corrosive with the action with the product with the density for the test of the product with the corrosiveness of the substance the most likely to present the petroleum product with the cause of the corrosion of the sulfur compound which is desirable to undesirable lubricating oil depends tend to use sulfur desirable to certainly the lubrication oil with the must increase the ability to stick and surface with the enhancing lubrication. However, the lubricating oils can not be used with the wear copper brass or other non-ferrous metals present with the sulfur corrosive to these metals. 2 sulfur and sulfur compounds are undesirable fuel the fuels are burned with the sulfur is converted with the sulfur dioxide sulfur acid. The 2 compounds highly corrosive the all metals including steel and the other ferrous metals products the 2 growth that may cause the engine failure the failure of the bearings and ball joint. The copper strip. The test of the performance of the gasoline turbine fuel oil with the grief the method the copper strip the strip of the test tube with the test tube with the fill with enough product to cover the copper strip of the test tube with the plate for the oven and hot water tube hot water bath are set for a set amount of time. The exact temperature of the bath duration test vary with the product. After the time of the lap, the copper strip of the wipe the read with the product with the contaminator with the shade and discolorization set of the copper strip with the comparison yield the reading of the corrosive the initiative of the product. Acid number, the precise number measuring the amount of the base of the bringing the product with the neutral state of the relative acidity of the product with the determine the relative acidness of the base of the category product is on the pH scale. The scale range from 0 to 14 water pH of 7. The neutral acid is defined as having the range of the 0 very acidic like sulfuric acid. 6.9 is milky acid lemon Lemon juice bases occupy other than the 7-1 milky base like lime and 14 very basic like sodium hydroxide. Alright, 12. The quality control test. Specific gravity, API gravity, all petroleum property have either specific gravity, API gravity tests performed to determine the density of the term depth generally even the quality to indicate with the bank with the volume correct with the specific gravity ratio of the wave of the volume of the substance of the wave of the volume of the water. Normally, specific gravity of the petroleum product is converted with the degree of the API, the relation of the API degree of specific gravity is expressed in this formula. Specific gravity is equal to 141.5 over 131.5 plus the AP degrees. When the specific gravity of the one with the API gravity is 10 degree with the petroleum product, they have the density less than water. The API gravity with the greater than 10, the API gravity head with develops eliminated the petroleum problem directly with the specific gravity. Hydrometers give the API gravity readings, so abnormal API gravity readings are responsible for suspect contamination product with another. Appearance and workmanship. The visual test performed with all product petroleum product determine the look and the difference whether they should be the product should be clear with the free of the suspended material, the bright and sparkle, the transmitted light with the homogeneous, the uniform mix, but not separated, with stratified. No have visual sediment of the water and the solid liquid contaminations. Can lead through restricted fuel metering point with the improper seating and the inlet valve of the corrosion fuel line, freezing, gel formation, fails or plugging failure of the lubricating product, contamination, visual sediment, water shall be filtered and retested before issue. Or your colors. This test is performed with many petroleum products to determine contamination, deterioration, identified with the find the color test made to determine the uniform of the product batch. When the product's distribution in the system of the color test with the qualified indicator of the deterioration contamination. If the product darker than is expected, could it indicate that the contamination of the heavier product with the color is lighter than expected with the contamination lighter product if it's possible. Further testing may be required to determine if the product can still be used. For oils and diesel fuels, the ASEM method is used the white oil for the kerosene and gasoline stable colorimeter method is used. The aqua glow test is run with the aviation fuels like the ground fuel to detect the harm level of the water contamination. Water can become petroleum contaminated with any state of the refinery. Ultimately, the extreme care must be to eliminate the water from the fuel. Water aviation fuels and furies from the ice for the altitude to 8,500 feet. The resulting ice can clog with onboard fuel filters, preventing fuel flow for the engine. And for the reason for the water, generally at 10 parts per million maximum. The result of the higher of the fuel should be recirculated, filtered, separated, retested. Water reaction. This test runs on the aviation fuel to determine the presence of the alcohol aromatic sulfication, the presence of the alcohol aromatics that encrypt the water current of the content of the fuel. The water falls out with the fuel with the temperature of the clog with the fuel filter. The lines surfactants change with the flow of the character of the fuel, degrade with the performance of fuel in the engine. Millipore. The test metaphor with the fuel to determine the amount of the particular solid contamination of the fuel sample. Too much of solid contamination that can clog the engine filter, fuel line with carburetors, injectors, recirculating the product with the filter separator that usually solve the problem. Fuel system line icing inhibitor. The testing is run with the jet turbine engine through SS2 additive with the jet turbine fuel to prevent the dissolved water from freezing altitudes above 8,500 feet. Dissolve the water contained between the molecules of the fuel that cannot be seen with the naked eye. Free water in the fuel make the fuel appear cloudily and puddle in the bottom of the fuel. The SS2 is hold easily out of the fuel by free water when the fuel path of the filter separated the free water. The SS2 since separated from the fuel. This fuel leave the fuel with a low level of the SST, decreasing the effectiveness lack of the SS2 and the fuel can indicator of the poor fuel handling techniques. Ash. The test and run on fuel oil lubricant determining of the ash for the forming of the material that present with the product with the ash form the contaminant such for the rust and sand and metallic salt that can abrade with the metal. Superly clogging injection novel with the form deposit the ash content with the higher with the product should not be used. If the ash content is too low, it could indicate loss of additives. Carbon residual. The test performed with the distillate with the diesel JPA with the residual fuels, heating oil with the burning oil, lubricating oil. The amount of the carbon residual indicate the corroded oil base have the manufacturer of the product the paraffin based product have low carbon residual. Asphalt-based products have the high carbon residual. Distillated fuels have high carbon residual. Have the deposit of the engine causing hot spark initiation combustion chamber and the fuel injector blockage of the residual fuel with a high carbon residual may be caused with the heat generation equipment clogging burning of the creative sulfur or pollution lubricating oil that have the high carbon residual. Poor lubricants to be able to heavy that leaves deposit the excessive wear. Or 13, contamination, deterioration, reclamation, disposition. Note, Military Handbook 210, Table 10, 200, Table 10, provided the character of the contamination. Contaminated product contains some of the material that normally present the dirt, water, rust, another petroleum product contaminated to modify the character of the product with the interfere with the machine with the product with use. The UV contaminated product can result with the loss of the time. The equipment of the product may be contaminated the accident, inability to follow a product with the petroleum handle procedure of the gross carelessness of the subject, sabotage, in most cases the contaminated product can be deteriorated detected unusual appearance of gravity order with the product. However, sometimes the contamination can also be detected with the laboratory. All products suspected with contamination should be reported to the command. Some of the most commonly type of the contamination, the dirt with the presence of the dirt with the petroleum product with the easily rubbed because all of the inadequate cleaning of the inspection of the tank with the current tank the result arrived at the result of the product with the corrosion metal, the red over the power of the red leave, the insoluble with the water with the warm, the troublesome suspensions. 3 mil scale of the magnetic product with the form of the during the manufactured metal part with the largely responsible blue black paint with the furnished metal surface of the air serve the containment of the bulk product with the pump in the new pipeline the first few days the weeks of the U the scale of the brittle crack with the red leaf with the corrosion and the stroke of the crack with the spread with the under of the cut and leak off the flake something not satisfactory method of eliminating scale of the filtering method. Water is present in all fuel systems as in entering the system at the point where the water may be present with the dissolved and not visible with the naked eye entering. Give the product without hazy with the paint with the free water with the droplets bottom of the product with any of the form of the water dangerous contamination free of the clog filters the lines of the hose loss of life and equipment microbacterial growth the growth of the contaminant protozoa the bacteria the fungi organism the growth and fuel in the water interface the organism hold the rest of the dirt and suspension to a steady level of the water emulsification clean is decided with all the containers to cover the erosion reading of the fuel system with the sluggish fuel control of the operation secondly overflow dividers with the method of controlling microbiological growth and good housekeeping for a FCS2 the proven effect of the biocide. Fibers. The scale of the paper type of the filter for the category of cloth and cotton to waste the fibers into the product with the flow of the fiber filtered burst. The new filters are played within the operation after changing the filters. The head burst recirculating the problem with the filter burst with easily solve the problem. Left unchecked with the filters can clog the engine filters, the low lines, injectors, and carburetors. 7. Commingling. Commingling of the contaminant of the petroleum product with another petroleum product with sometimes commingling adequate cleaning over the lines, mishandling of the manifold, leaking in the tank of the valve, commingling with the natural preservative depending on the product with the contamination agent with the amount of the contamination. Some of the effects of the commingling are loss of the power with the fuel with increase volatility, increase the gum content formation, heavily slight degradation, thermal stability, increase the water separation time. Deterioration. The character of the product change over the time the change can be initiated in habit conditions of the storage not only observable but by personal handling of the product, therefore, the quality of the issue depends on the laboratory control program. The most common form of deterioration, weather and gum formation, loss of the F2 as scope of the weather. 2. 1. Weathering of the loss of the more volatile component. Some of the product effect of the most non-suitable aviation motor gasoline. Most of the product property for the enough vapor pressure to record the seal the storage tank. The storage tanks are vented with the air. The temperature arrived with the vapor pushed out with the vent. If the temperature fall with the suck of the vent, suck to the vent, and is less the cycle to produce the loss of more of the volatile compound. The more volatile compound deemed for even the cold weather engine start up the engine warm up. The lowest volatile fuel must trouble the engine performance. 2. Gum formation. Gum formation is common the troubles with the deterioration caused by the presence of the unsaturated hydrocarbon, the presence of the oxygen and the unsaturated hydrocarbons. Soon with the gum eventually with the resinous material with the gummy substance is going to remain with the solution. The difficulty in the engine to vaporize can form the deposit of the cylinder wall of the engine with the carburetor essentially clogging them to come deposit of the carbon build up the engine result of the higher cause the engine performance resistant material with the cell of the bottom of the product with they are formed by the very difficult clean out of the bottom of the container comes from resin inhibitors out of the product with which the effective limited time only. Loss of additive. The color loss of additive such as the SS2 with the color have not been in itself with certainty with the form of deterioration cover the girl and together between all known occurring during the store of the loss of additive being postponed result of the manufacturer mistake of the poor product handling contamination. The effect of the product determine what type of the additive will allow for the example the loss of the oxidation inhibitors decrease the length of the time of the product can be stored with the loss of the color itself. The unimportant but in decay of the product had been oxidizing further evaluation but be necessary. But loss of the SS2 cold could affect always fuel line free at the higher altitudes. Good petroleum handling with the quality surveillance measure for the best way of preventing loss of additives. Reclamination and disposition. Generally, such deterioration and contamination must be confirmed with the laboratory test. Reclamination referred to the procedure required with the restore with the changing of the quantity of the product was made usable. Laboratory should be consulted before any procedure of reclaiming the products of the initiated the methods of reclamination, including downgrading, bending, filtering, dehydrating, and inhibiting the preferred restore of the product with the originally intended the most commonly effective method of impracticable and impossible. The next carrier to make the product usable in some level to decide with the reclamination method of the use of the following factors. Degree of the contamination deviation, the required product specification, portable, and probable end view for the product with the present condition after laboratory Analysis probability, restoring product usable product quality, original intent to use the other end, location, quantity of the questionable product with need the unclaimed product, and they have any facility estimated consumption rate, availability of material equipment necessary to reclaim the product. 2. The products showing the segregated type of the product, some of the represented by the byproduct with the type of the tank of the laboratory. If appropriate, the product may be issued with immediately. Further storage is not recommended if the product cannot be issued within other options. Alright, D. Downgrading. Product that can be reclaimed with the intent but may be used downgraded to lower quality product. As low of the product may be used with a limited lower quality product. For example, the diesel fuel can be reclaimed for users and motors may be used with fuel, heating plants, or stationary engines as long as it meets the limits for the type of the product of the downgrade. Alright, blending. Blending is a mixture of the two products with a usually deteriorated, contaminated product with a product with on its own specification. However, the two products should be on the same type of intent for the same original use. All blendings must be strictly controlled. Blending ratio determined by the laboratory. For example, the blending mixing with 100 gallons for the JPA with a 10,000 gallon with an on-spec specification JPA, resulting in 10,100 gallons for the JPA, and suitable with the original intent for the actual blending of the ratio provided with the laboratory. Occasionally, the combination of blending and downgrading is usually done properly with a large quantity of the grossly contaminated, deteriorated product, which would require the use of more of the specification of the field, particularly product with the intent for example, not enough storage space creates more product that can be issued quality of the consumption, only enough the unspecification product blending grossly contaminated, deteriorated product to bring in the use of limits most type of the possible. You with the example of 10,000 gallons grossly contaminated JPA and the 250 gallons on specification GPA, depending on the make of the usable fuel for the heating plant. Dehydration. Water will generally settle out of the product with allowed to stand undisturbed for a few days for the lighter product with weaker, more heavier product with wind. Water is bled off the V of the water draw off valve. Water can be extracted with a filter separately. Filter separately to provide DOD filter is highly effective in removing water solid contaminating. Quality check the water sediment the water required the downstream of the filter separated and change the criteria including the product quality. Inhibiting the reintroduction of the loss additive of the product can be done with the most of the additive of the additive product and even the limits more with the some of the type of the additive of the entry of the product with bringing the use level. For example, the F2 is content 500 gallon JP8 has the following the 5,000%. The F2 has additive P8 bringing the F2 content to 5/100 of the percent of the use limit of the F2 content of the GPA is slated with an immediate consumption. And G. Disposal as preferred method of the disposition. Military service will not go any far. Will not use all of the product means the cost of the money from the product with the many more money to dispose of it. This waste money that could be used elsewhere. The product that disposed of IAW will prevent DOD serve the branch for the EPA regulation. Improper disposal of the product could result in the fines being levied and jail of substances involved in property invalid parties. Section Lesson 11, Petroleum Requirements Computations.